Running shoe rotations are very important for me when it comes to training blocks. The first few weeks is usually a bit experimental and seeing what works and what doesn't. Then I tend to lock into what works well and not make too many adjustments. So today I want to share my provisional 5 shoe rotation plus a brand new shoe coming in later this week, which will no doubt make its way in there. And as the Asics Nova Blast has recently been retired, that opens up a space for another shoe to come in, plus the fact that I'm training for a distance that I've never trained for before. 5K is something completely different for me, and therefore I'm looking at the shoes in my rotation and wondering what is going to be best. So that's why it's going to be experimental at the start. Let's dive in. So let's start with the Easy Day shoe and work through to the workout shoes and the racing shoe. We'll start with the On Cloud Surfer 2. So this has recently come into the rotation, kindly sent to me by On for the purpose of review. Put my review out of that last week and I've been pleasantly surprised to the point where I haven't actually taken it off my feet. So I got a couple of runs done in that shoe for the test. That was an easy run and a moderate run. I basically said that I enjoyed it slightly more on the easy run, maybe not quite so much on the moderate run. The foam was firm, it was good, there was a good rocker at the end of the shoe. I felt like I could get rolling, but you don't get too much responsiveness back from the foam. It was good and a solid 7 out of 10 style midsole, but the reality is, as I said, I've not taken it off my feet since then. I had a complete easy and steady week last week, but the weekend I did a long run which was around 90 minutes long, and that was a faster moderate effort which really turned into a tempo towards the end, and I used that shoe and it was really good, and I've used it again this week. So it's definitely getting into the rotation in place of that Nova Blast, and I think pretty much that's its trial period over. It's passed the test and I'm happy to use it moving forwards. The other backup which I'm going to throw in there, which I'll probably use a couple of times throughout this block, but it's there really, as I said, as a backup, is the Mizuno Neo Vista. That one's got around 90 miles in it for me. A shoe that's done really well on a lot of training runs, but something that's never really wowed me. But I appreciate the fact that it's completely the opposite to the On Cloud Surfer 2. So if I ever feel like I'm looking for something a bit softer, something's going to look after the legs, as I kickstart my weeks every week with a longer, steady run before my first workout of the week, I can see it maybe slotting in there to be used, but I don't think it's going to be used too much. The Adidas Adios 9 is the third shoe that's going to come in to the rotation. So I tested this out. I picked it up back in February. Really impressed with this shoe. Did a couple of workouts in it, but kind of parked it until I got my half marathon and my racing done. In between my recent 3 race streak, I basically did no workouts at all. Basically in the last week between the second and third race, I did something small on the trails just to sharpen up a bit because I felt okay after the second race, but I did that in the Nova Blast. It wasn't anything special and I didn't particularly dedicate it to be a proper workout. So now that we're going to be doing a lot of shorter, sharper stuff, it's going to get its debut. In fact, it's going to get a run out tomorrow when I'm recording this, which is Monday, so Tuesday. The first shorter, sharper workout of the block is going to be christened with that shoe, and I'm excited to take that one forward. It's definitely the most exciting for me out of the shorter distance training shoes that I have. Loving the Lightstrike Pro. I said so much about it. I produced an extra channel video on it as well, and that one is probably going to get the most use out of any shoe in this block. Now onto the fourth shoe, which contains 3 shoes which will be used for the longer workouts, maybe the more threshold workouts and some tempo work. So as I said, the Adios 9 will be the speed work, the top end intervals. These are going to be used across the board for the other workouts, and the first one will be the Alpha Fly 3. I mentioned this in my last rotation video. This one's coming in. I'm not going to race in it, but I want to use it, spend my money on it, so I'm going to get the most out of this shoe that I can. I find it pretty decent around that tempo sort of effort. Picking up the pace, I'm not a huge fan. It's such a big shoe, but it will do the job, and it will do the job well. As I said, in the previous block, I've used the Adios Pro 3. What a shoe that is. I still haven't found that on a particularly amazing discount yet. I am still keeping my eye out to find something spectacular, and I'm hoping as the Pro 4 comes out into bigger quantities, then we'll see the 3 hit the shelves in the outlet shops a lot cheaper. So I'm going to be patient on that one. So the Alpha Fly 3 will come in for those, and also the Saucony Endorphin Elite version 1. Again, I want to use that one until it is pretty much defunct. That's another one that I'll swap and move around with the Alpha Fly, and some of these shoes will also potentially be used on my long runs when I've got maybe a bit of tempo in the long runs penciled in to the training plan. So they'll be used mainly for those workouts, but the long runs too. Again, as I've mentioned before, the midsole foam on this one has gone completely dead, but I still find it to be a super smooth ride. The whole setup of that shoe just works so well for me, and I'm not going to retire it just because the midsole foam's gone flat. I don't feel like it's going to cause me an injury, therefore I'm going to keep using it for now. And the final one is the Endorphin Pro 4 from Saucony as well. This one is pretty fresh still. I haven't put too many miles miles in it. It's a shoe that I tested out initially, was really underwhelmed with it, really gutted. I actually won a 5-mile race in it, a local 5-mile race. I was very happy with the race itself, but I tell you what, I was really feeling the lack of responsiveness in that shoe, the lack of pop. For a carbon plated shoe, I was really disappointed with this update. I had the Pro 3 and they were absolutely spectacular. One of the best, in fact, that I've tried in a long time. But the Pro 4 I felt was just such a bad downgrade. Really hoping they do something with the Pro 5 at some point to really change it up, because it was so disappointing. But of course, I've got a carbon plated shoe just sat there collecting dust, which feels ridiculous. So again, that one will probably come in for some workouts too. There's no reason why I can't use it on those longer threshold workouts. And finally, the racing shoe is still going to be the Puma Velocity Nitro 3. I've got around 74 miles in that shoe so far, and I have absolutely no reason to drop this one or relegate it to the bench. Of course, I've got 3 pairs of Next Percent 2, which I've been racing in a lot before these Puma. To be honest with you, I could very easily swap the Puma out and use the Next Percent 2 because they work so well for me, but I have absolutely no reason to. Now, there is one thing that I mentioned with the Puma in a recent video, and that is the fact that maybe after 10, 11, 12 miles and a half marathon, I do find that my Achilles gets a little bit sore. I ran the Newport half marathon in this shoe the other week and it was absolutely fine. But again, just walking back to the car, it was a little bit sore. So I tend to find that maybe over the longer distances, it does cause a little bit of irritation there, which signals to me that I would not use it for a full marathon if needs be, but I seem to be able to get away up to a half marathon with it. And to be completely honest with you, it is an absolute beaut of a racing shoe. That plate, that midsole foam, that combination, again, it just works really well for me. I'm excited to see how it works over the shorter distances. It's worked really well for me over the 10Ks and the half marathon, so let's see how it does over the 5K. But there is one shoe coming in later this week, which will no doubt get into the rotation, and we'll see which shoe ends up being relegated or maybe sharing some of the miles, and that is the Adidas Evo SL. Now, recently, after the Bourton 10K, I tried out some shoes that Tim Gross brought along for me to check out. They included the Nike Zoom Fly 6 Adidas Evo SL, the Pro 4 as well from Adidas, and then the Pegasus Premium. I was blown away, to be quite honest with you, with the Evo SL and the Zoom Fly 6. Both really good shoes. A lot of you guys have said how impressed you were with the Zoom Fly 6, and I've nearly bought that shoe on a couple of occasions. However, the only thing that stopped me, as a lot of you guys know if you are regulars to the channel, is I'm not a massive fan of training in plated shoes if I can avoid it. I like to train in shoes that don't have the plates, and I just save them really for once a week. I don't really want something in there dropping in maybe multiple times a week to be used potentially on the long run, potentially on those longer threshold workouts. I'd rather keep it to a minimum if I can. I'd rather save that magic for race day. And when I tried the Evo SL, my word, they felt amazing. I literally ran 2 minutes in them, but the fit was sublime, just like the Adios 9, and the way they felt was brilliant. They just worked so well for me. So I'm excited to give these a longer test, and of course, hopefully, a lot of miles in during this training block. As a side note, I've been really frustrated with the way that Adidas have been drip feeding these shoes in. I've been really annoyed, but of course the hype got me, and I have been entering the draws to see if I can win this shoe. I actually found a pair of 13.5s on Zalando, a company that I've never ordered before, but I checked out the website, checked out the reviews. They seem legitimate. A lot of people I know have ordered from there, and they've apparently been shipped, so I'm excited to see, and they're in a different colorway to what I've seen on other websites. So let's hope that one delivers. So we're just over 3 weeks until the first 5K. I'm excited to get rocking and rolling with this rotation. Of course, I'm always open to suggestions, to hear from you guys what you like to use. I'm sure a lot of you have trained for 5Ks, whereas I have not. So have you found a shoe in particular that has worked really well for you during a training block? And if so, how do you use it? It'd be great to hear from you down in the comments below. As I said, I'm always open to suggestions. Something that did pop into my mind was the Takumi Sen 10. I've seen that on discount recently. I considered picking that up. The Takumi Sen 9 was absolutely phenomenal, but only really for just over 100 miles. I ended up finding that my ankle was collapsing in a bit too much because that medial cutout was just not working for me. I seemed to be all right for the first 100, but after that, the tightness up my legs and the pain in the shins was just too much. So I had to retire that one. So I did consider it, but having watched a few reviews, nothing's particularly changed with the 10. So I'm not going to waste my money on that one. If you've got any other suggestions, please do drop them in the comments below. And other than that, that's it. If you're not following me on Strava, you can head over there. There's a link in the description. You'll see what shoes I run in daily if you want to check out how I'm using them in more detail. And if you're interested in watching another video, I will leave a link up here for my half half marathon training shoe rotation, and down here I'll leave one for the super shoes that I'm super excited for this year in 2025, and I'll see you guys over on one of those.